Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Let me ask you this question. How many elements typically associated with a role-playing game or a role-playing game session can we take away and still have what we're doing qualify as a role-playing game or role-playing game session? An often heard and seldom thought about piece of wisdom that floats around the internet is the idea that a role-playing game is a conversation. And my friend Anthony, aka RuneSlinger, asks very often, okay, if it's a conversation, what is a conversation about? Well, this video isn't about that, and it's not really going to attempt to answer that question. However, Anthony does have some excellent videos he's put up on the RuneSlinger channel talking about conversation as the medium of play, and also talking about the role of imagination. Is it or is it not necessary? And I'm going to link those in the description below. And we're also going to have a roundtable discussion with some other people about these topics. And so once he's actually, had that produced and put on his channel, I will link that as well. But let's get back to my question. So what elements can we remove apart from the, having a conversation and still have this qualify as a role-playing game? And let me make a note here, not your preferred style of role-playing game. It might not be a satisfying one for you, but what elements can we take away and still have it be a role-playing game? Well, let's see. We can take away maps, right? Don't necessarily need those. We can take away miniatures. All right, well, we don't necessarily need those. Virtual tabletop. Okay. What about dice? I like dice. I'm looking at my dice over there. I was going to have them right next to me, but, dice or other randomizers, we don't necessarily need to have them. And, it can still be a role-playing game, with or without randomization. And even without any of those props, we can still interject an element of chance into a role-playing game. You don't believe me? Okay, great. Think of an integer between 0 and 9. You got it? Okay. Before I asked you that, I already determined that answers of 0, 4, and 5 were going to be failures. However, if you came up with any other integer, then you succeeded in your 70% chance to sneak past the guard that was scrolling on their cell phone. See what I mean? So we don't necessarily need those. So the dice are out of a job, although I'm going to keep using them because I like them. So don't worry, guys. What else? What about character sheets? What about abilities and skills? Well, we don't necessarily need those. And what about prepared scenarios? Well, don't need that either. I mean, there's some games that do without those entirely. What about rules and procedures? Don't we need those? Not necessarily. Looking at the rules of various games or the absence of rules, don't necessarily need that either. We can still, the activity we're engaging in can still qualify as a role-playing game without any of those things. So, is that conversation alone a role-playing game? Well, as Anthony said, the conversation is the medium of play. This is how we're communicating with each other. But when I thought about it some more, I decided that at the end of the day, it's about language. Like in order for us to have this conversation, it has to be conducted in some kind of language. We have to be talking to each other. We have to be maybe writing something down on a play-by-post. Maybe we're using sign language. But if it's devoid of all those things, it becomes something more like a game of checkers if we're just moving things around. I guess we can't move things around because we took the minis away a long time ago. Oh, let's just say we have those. Probably doesn't really qualify. So then we're left with, what is this conversation about? What elements of this conversation make it a role-playing game or take away from it being a role-playing game? And that is a video for another time. And also, how we communicate. Say we're having this communication via language, via some way. How we communicate, whether it's in a forum, play-by-post, whether it's live, in-person talking with body language and facial expressions, or it's on Zoom that way, or if it's audio only. All these things have a profound impact on how the conversation feels, how the experience feels. And what if there's procedures for who talks when, or who makes decisions? And once again, all those things, well, that's a story and a topic for another video. See you later, kids.